Neither, so I was wondering about that.
Yeah, there's a Nawili. Oh, you know what? Unless it's Shirley. No.
She says she's in the waiting room.
Okay,
just,
so
is she Nawili or Hajar?
No, it's not her. I think it's Shirley. I think that's who it is.
Shirley? Oh.
Yeah, I just admitted her. Let's see. I'll be surprised together, right?
Yeah.
And I just, it is.
Okay, good.
I saw Shirley and I was like,
Hello?
more.
Are you on?
Oh, ask him. There we go. Okay. Can you unmute? Did you?
We're having a Zoom meeting that starts in a few minutes.
Hi, Shirley. Nice to meet you. I'm Janet. I'm on the steering committee, but I wasn't here last time.
Oh, you want to call in number instead of a Zoom link?
Nice to meet you. Thank you for being here.
Hi.
Yeah.
I'm using a different computer.
Oh, okay, good. You're changing your name. I was like, who's Shirley?
Nobody.
I'm so sorry. That's why you're laughing. And then I looked at the picture. I was like, oh, that's
her. Okay. By phone.
I don't blame Miss Charlie.
Area code 408 638 0968. And the meeting ID on that is 895 97 69 7722.
Oh, Louise is already recording. I don't know if you want to stop it and start it again.
No.
Okay.
I just edit it out. I just don't want to forget.
True. I've done that.
I know, so have I.
I know I missed the little check-ins. I'm so sorry, but who's first, Angela? What's the lineup?
Okay, I'm starting off with Tasca, and then Corey, and then you'll be the finale. Feel free if you want to take us through breathing.
Sounds good.
Hey, Robbie.
Hey, Robbie.
Hey, everybody. Thank you guys for coming.
You really look like you're on the beach.
I really am.
Oh, it just happened to look that same way every time.
African queen on the beach.
I see you. I see the head wrap. Go ahead, Robbie.
It's so bright out there today.
You got me. Look, I'm jealous.
I couldn't find my regular crown, my jeweled crown.
Okay.
Absolutely. I know that in my heart.
Absolutely. I'll be your subject. Tell me what you need.
Sorry, I had to deal with somebody who wanted to get in at the last minute, which is what I was afraid of. So it's past time, right? We need to be starting.
I'm right-handed.
I'll let everybody in that's in the waiting room.
Yeah, and then make sure that you mute them, Janet, too.
Mute them, okay.
Yeah, as you bring.
And then Louise can start the video, right? Or whoever.
I'm not seeing anybody else.
10 people in the waiting room. I'll get them.
Once they're all in, shall I start it? Or do you want to say something else? Is somebody going to say something?
No, go ahead and start it.
Here they come.
Okay.
to the Lord, and I won't turn back, no, I will go, I shall go to see what the end is gonna be. She does not know her beauty. She thinks her brown body has no glory. If she could dance naked under palm trees and see her image in the river, she would know. But there are no palm trees on the street, and dishwater gives back no images. So I open my mouth to the Lord, and I won't turn back, no, I will go on, shall go well. Once, riding in old Baltimore, head filled, heart filled with glee, I saw a Baltimorean keep looking straight at me. Now, I was 8 and very small, and he was no whit bigger, and so I smiled. But he stuck out his tongue and called me nigger. I saw the whole of Baltimore from May until December of all the things that happened there.
One second, she's moving it up to the Phenomenal Woman poem. But this is a great video. I'll drop it in links so everybody can watch it.
I wrote it for skinny women, those who deserve all our sympathy. I wrote it for all. That's it. Many people wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. When I try to show them, they think I'm telling lies. I say it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman, phenomenally. I walk into a room just as cool as you please, and to a man the fellows stand or fall down on their knees. And then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say, oh, it's the fire in my eyes, the flash of my teeth, the swing in my waist, the joy in my feet. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They try so much, but they can't touch my inner mystery. When I try to show them, they say they still can't see. I say, oh, it's in the arch of my back. And now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk too loud. When you see me walking, it ought to make you proud. I say it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hands, the need for my care, because I'm a woman, phenomenally. Phenomenal woman. That's my mother and all your mothers. And then my grandmothers, and all your grandmothers, and my great-grandmothers, and your great-grandmothers, and my great-great-great, and your great-great-great, and all you women here, and me.
Angela, I'm getting last minute requests for entry. Can you do the welcome, please?
Sure, no problem. Yes. Good evening, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Committee for Justice. Woo! I would first like to start this meeting by acknowledging our native lands. Although we are virtual at this point in history, geographic areas the Committee for Racial Justice represents are the traditional lands of the following Native people: the Chumash, the Tongva, and the Quiche. We must also acknowledge our African ancestors brought over to work on this land and help build it to what it is today. I'm Angela Scott, one of the steering committee members for the Committee for Racial Justice, and this is our monthly community meeting. We know that you could be doing other things right now, but you have chosen to be with us, and for that, we are grateful. We hope that this is a time for robust conversation, reflection, education, and healing. May this evening also provide a catalyst for action. And if you're not already on our email list, please drop your information in the chat so that we will include you in our upcoming events. Many of you know the Committee for Racial Justice was formed 9 years ago following a racial incident at Santa Monica High School when a Black student was chained to a locker by 2 white students who went into the other room and yelled, "Slave for sale," and there was a noose nearby. As what usually happens, that incident was minimalized by many in leadership as a boys will be boys type of stunt. But CRJ was quick to respond and has been working against racism ever since. We work primarily in the areas of education, mass incarceration, and police brutality. March is known as Women's History Month. And so this March gathering for racial justice, we're going to take a deep dive in what it means to truly take care of ourselves and our loved ones, queens. And this should be a guiding principle for everyone every day. However, creating self-care routines during a pandemic especially has been an obstacle course, especially for women of color, as we found out, just based on the disparities within our communities. So while learning to navigate what appears to be a new normal, Black women stand at the crossroads of this reckoning as leaders, nurturers, and providers, our queens. So this workshop will explore why self-care matters and how to put self-care into action, empowering the mind, the body, and the spirit. And also we'll learn how to help empower our fellow allies as well. Everyone will learn collectively. And so we have a powerful panelist. We have Dr. Tasca Moore, who is a board-certified obstetrician and gynecologist. She spent more of her career working exclusively in underserved communities. Working in communities of limited means presents challenges, including battling diseases caused or worsened by poor healthcare choices. So Dr. Moore is determined to provide high quality care to women with socioeconomic challenges and provide resources to empower them with better options. As a certified ACE health coach for the last 5 years, she uses her knowledge regarding exercise and nutrition to guide patients in their journey towards healthier lives. Dr. Moore will speak to us on honoring a Queen's Temple, her body, and how to maintain optimal health throughout every stage of a woman's life cycle. We also have philanthropist Corey Taylor, who is rapidly becoming the leading innovator in physical fitness. He has increased the quality of life for entertainment and professional sports figures, which has added value to their career worth. And such clients include Charmin Lee, Emmy-nominated actress Niecy Nash, NFL great Darren Walls, Grammy Board artist Mumu Fresh, who I like, and award-winning filmmaker Ava Marie DuVernay. He's a full-time vegan. And I love that because I'm a vegetarian myself, and an amateur boxer. Corey Taylor will provide fitness insight on the power of health and mindfulness. And then we have Nakia Fields, who is a mental health entrepreneur, author, and speaker. She is a registered play therapist, supervisor, certified field instructor, and clinical social worker in the state of California. She has more than 12 related community-focused programming. She's the founder and chair of the board for the Therapeutic Play Foundation, a nonprofit that seeks to build a healthier, more resilient world for those in under-resourced communities. Nakia shares tips on finding your superpower. Are you guys ready for that? Let's dig in and find our superpower and how self-care routines create life energy that reinforces ideal health, as well as how allies and family members can support our Black queens. So let's look forward to a lively conversation. To kick things off, we're gonna drop it popcorn pass all the way over to Dr. Taskemore. Welcome, Dr. Taskemore.
Oh, thank you guys so very much. It is an honor to be here with you this evening. Thank you so very much for the invitation. I appreciate it. I'm excited about today's talk. I'm excited because we are celebrating International Women's Day, especially a special day for me to talk on this topic. So I'm going to go over today just the ways in which we can care for ourselves, going through the various stages of womanhood. But in the process, I'll tell you guys, always in the process of preparing for these discussions, I'm always just again so blown away and so falling in love again with how amazing the body is. So I'm hoping you will take some inspiration away from today's talk with you based on just how amazing we are and how amazingly built we are. And also the key message today is that we are so much more in control of our health than we realize. So with that being said, I'm going to jump right into it. So today we're going to start to focus on just a few concepts first. And once I go through the concepts, then we'll break it down by stages of womanhood to make it a little bit more relevant and talk about a little bit more specifics as to what things we can do based on our cohort. So self-care is self-preservation. It is not a choice, nor is it an option. One of our greatest deficits in the healthcare system of the US is the deficit of self-care. Self-care is often sometimes viewed as an end of week goal, but self-care is meant to be a daily effort with practical goals based on our lifestyles. The hashtag self-care Saturday and self-care Sunday, they're cute, but they're not life goals because self-care cannot be caught up at the end of the day. You cannot catch up on any aspect of self-care in a single day of the week. I'll give you just one example. It takes 3 to 4 days to recover from 1 hour of lost sleep. So I'm going to ask you guys in the chat, if you can, tell me how many hours of sleep did you get last night? I want to know. And while you guys are answering that question, I'll give you a little bit more information on self-care. Self-care is an expression of self-love. And as harsh as it may sound, the inability to care for ourselves is an inability to love ourselves, and ultimately an inability to fully care and love others. Think about that one. A life that lacks self-care requires either reprioritization or assessing what is the chronic mindset deficit. In those cases, we would ask ourselves, what is the root cause of my lack of self-value? Sometimes it's as simple as asking for help, perhaps recruiting more people to be a part of your village. Sometimes shifting our spending is also a form of self-care as we shift from buying shoes to buying services, where it's pretty easy to buy items, but it's sometimes we don't think. And this is a note to self because self-care is a journey for me too. Loving your job is not self-care. Work is work at the end of the day. Self-care is not about loving what you do, but about loving who you are. Being intentional about our self-care has to also be balanced. For those of us who are task-oriented, we like to check those things, our boxes off of on our to-do list. Well, self-care is not about finishing a particular task, but about truly indulging in the love of ourselves. So I'm going to take a peek at some of those responses before we go on. Let's see how much hours. Okay. 5 to 6, 7. So a lot of people are averaging about where we are in the US in terms of sleep. So we'll talk about sleep a little bit more. Thank you so much for your responses. So let's go over a couple of concepts to help you guide through managing your healthcare. The first thing we must know is that we are the CEOs of our health. So we have a lot of business people in the room, right? So you guys understand what that means. We are truly the CEOs, and we hire members to be a part of our healthcare team. So we are hiring members in the form of practitioners. So we are your consults to help you and guide you towards your health goals. Helping you participate in and be a part of your healthcare team is important. So making sure we find a team that really values our individual input. Members of your healthcare team can be conventional or it can be naturopathic or a combination of the two, right? Conventional medicine is made out of manufactured items, produced items, but it's well studied. Naturopathic medicine provides a lot of information, natural options, but it's not as well studied and not as well regulated. So again, making that informed balance. Understanding our macro versus our micronutrients. What about our minerals? Being comfortable with reading labels. Don't get intimidated by words. Look it up. We have access to a lot of information today. So looking up information that you're not quite familiar, and if you're not familiar with it, you may not want to put it in your body. And then also being aware of the toxic relationships are just as toxic as toxic medications and overdoing supplements. Making sure that each member of your healthcare team is informed of any changes in your healthcare. And when we want a holistic approach to our healthcare, understanding what that means. Holistic medicine and a holistic approach means it requires us to do some work. It's not about just taking medication. It's about truly participating in your healthcare. And then also finding out information and knowing information about yourself and your own history. One of the things that's oftentimes overlooked is the history of our families. So what is it that runs in your family? And I know that there are oftentimes families, and sometimes family members just don't want to disclose their private information, but we get to be the start of shifting that paradigm, right? We get to be the first people to reveal what are we struggling with, what are our medical conditions, so that other family members will know that information and be able to take the relevant steps to make changes in their life. When we disclose information, on also understanding which side of the family, is it paternal, is it maternal? Some disease processes, that makes a difference. And how old was the member in our family that is struggling with a particular disease? So for example, someone who has dementia in their 40s is a very different diagnosis than dementia in their 70s or perhaps 80s. Knowing the onset of cancer, even if the person is still alive, knowing what age they became diagnosed is truly important. So as we love to gather for those holidays, and a lot of us in our culture, we have a culture of oral tradition, healthcare topics at the dinner table. Who has what? Who's been diagnosed with what? And changing some of our culture so that we're able to help us and our family members. Sometimes self-care seems so burdensome, like it's something major that you have to do, but it's really just every day making choices to do the most simple things that says, I value me. And sometimes that's choosing the healthier meal. Sometimes it's staying active, and staying active is very different from doing an exercise regimen. Sometimes it's sleeping well, making that decision to take that extra hour of sleep, exercising regularly, and also taking inventory on our emotions and our mindfulness. Sometimes it's as simple as moisturizing your skin and really taking the time to pay attention. So here's my question to you, and you can drop a comment in the chat if you desire. What did you learn about yourself and about your health during the pandemic? The pandemic was a really good time for us to be so self-reflective. So I want to see what you learned. And while you're doing that, I'm going to continue. So self-care is also about looking in the mirror. And we're really good about looking in the mirror to make sure our makeup is all right, our hair looks good, but really looking in the mirror to be intentional about checking the outer covering, right? So our skin, our hair, our nails are the first things to tell us when there's a change in our inner health. So making sure that we understand and are able to see the signs that may reflect stress in our lives, that may reflect that we may be having some nutritional deficiencies that needs to be addressed. And for people of color, this takes really good paying attention because our changes are sometimes very, very subtle. So you really have to make a routine of knowing yourself and paying attention to the outer covering. Our bowels are the true tellers. The bowel will let you know whether or not you're nutritionally deficient. They will also let you know if you're stressed out. Some people struggle with IBS. They are also the first line of breach in our immune system. So the bowels, when we think of our immune system, we don't often think of the bowels, but the bowel is actually one of the first lineup to protect us against invasion, improper dieting, and things of the sort. Right. So I'm going to take a quick look and see what you guys have reflected on. Oh, Zoom fatigue is very real. Thank you for that. You are so right. And taking the time to prepare meals. Yeah, it was really the pandemic. It was really a good time for us to create new habits. And it's not too late to do that. So I encourage you to do so also. Thank you for sharing. So let's talk about self-care in terms of the different stages of womanhood. So there truly, as we progress through womanhood, we go through many stages, right? And depending on our stage, we pass or surpass certain milestones. So let's go over some tips based on the stages that we. One of the most critical conversations is always on what? Fertility. When it comes to women, it's always the fertility question. And so here's just some tips for people who are considering and are having questions about their fertility. We actually just posted a video on this today. And one of the real conversations we have to help women have, is really being transparent with ourselves. What is really important to us? Is it important to us to have children? And not just have children, but is it important to us to also have our own biological children? These are critical questions that we should definitely have transparent thought process and really evaluating this for ourselves. And then for those women who are preparing for our family, recognizing that there is an ongoing decline of our eggs. So we're born with all the eggs we're going to have to our entire life. And by the time we hit puberty, the far majority of those eggs are gone. And certainly as we progress through the rest of our lives, we continue to making sure that we're aware of that time factor. And so oftentimes we're very familiar with the 35-year-old time frame, and that's when our fertility changes. But fertility for women actually start to decline in the early 30s. And for some women as early as the late 20s. So making sure when we're planning our career and we're figuring things out, that we're keeping those things in mind, and also relaying this information to other women so that we're all able to have the power to make the right decisions for ourselves. And for those who are preparing for pregnancy, it's not good enough to prepare to be healthy during pregnancy. It's really important to start to prepare even before pregnancy, making those medication adjustments, making those lifestyle changes, eating a healthy diet like a Mediterranean diet. And for women who are concerned about your ovarian reserve, also considering things like what supplements may be beneficial, like DHEA and CoQ10. But also paying attention to your partner. If you're in a relationship with a biological male, making sure that his health is also important. We often focus on the women, but fertility issues are equally shared with men. So the pregnant woman, when we think of marathons and we think of pregnancy, so we think of pregnancy as okay, it happened, we'll just roll with the punches, we'll go with it, right? And when we say we're preparing for a marathon, we go into a certain mindset when we're preparing to do a marathon. But pregnancy has much more impact on your health, way more than a marathon does. It requires much more endurance and causes much more changes. So making sure we have that mindset that when we're looking at pregnancy, that we're also looking at basically the same mindset as we would a marathon. Making sure we take care of our mouth. Heart health and pregnancy are correlated with dental health. So making sure we're taking care of our teeth and our gums, don't overlook it. It's very strongly correlated with those outcomes. And also making sure that we eat those, fruits and vegetables. We hear this all the time, and it seems to be such rhetoric, but it's truly important because fruits and vegetables have the nutrition that really help us with our mood and with fighting certain disease processes. So we oftentimes tell women, oh, you're pregnant now, go ahead and make sure you're eating for 2. Not quite true. Drop in the chat how many more calories you think a pregnant woman should consume compared to when she's not pregnant. I want to know what you guys think. And then also don't ignore the aches and pains, right? So during pregnancy, we kind of assume that, oh yeah, par for the course. If you have aches and pains, that's part of being pregnant. Yes, it certainly, you can have more aches and pains during pregnancy, but it's certainly not something to ignore. And I truly believe that a lot of our chronic conditions are related to ignored changes that happen in the body as a result of pregnancy. This is my theory. I truly believe it. And the studies are beginning to show that. But so also making sure that we're doing that core health and making sure that we're strengthening our bodies and doing things that will decrease fall and strengthen our bodies in general. Postpartum is one of those time periods that we really need to do better in healthcare to help women through the postpartum period, because those changes can sometimes change a woman's entire life. So making sure we prioritize helping her lose her weight, because we know that 75% of women are heavier a year after giving birth than she was compared to pre-pregnancy. So we definitely can do better. And then this is a great opportunity to add pelvic floor health to our health regimen. So this is something we often ignore, is the pelvic floor, and correctly known as the pelvic floor diaphragm. We need to do better to incorporate this as a part of our health regimen. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the later stages. Also, postpartum, when we think of breastfeeding, we think of the health of the baby, but there's so many health benefits to breastfeeding for the mom: lowering breast and ovarian cancer rate, helping with autoimmune diseases and rheumatological conditions, decreasing hypertension and diabetes, and also helping to fight against heart disease. So let's see what you guys said about the calories for women. So Dysa, you hit it right on. I hope I'm saying that name correct, your name correctly. You hit it right on the nose. 300 calorie more than pre-pregnancy. So only 300 calories, not a double portion. So let's talk about the middle age. I consider the middle age to be that time period where we're like, wait, what just happened? The middle age is oftentimes when women are balancing, family, and we're balancing careers. So it's a very high stress time period. So in the middle age group, we want to focus on stress reduction. We want to also focus on preventive medicine, because this is oftentimes when chronic diseases get diagnosed. So we deal with more GYN issues. Your fibroids become diagnosed. You have endometriosis. You have interstitial cystitis. You have your diabetes being diagnosed, your hypertension, your high cholesterol, the list goes on and on. What does this all mean? There's underlying chronic inflammation. So all of the decisions we made in our earlier years are now coming inflammation. So certainly our immune system is supposed to trigger an inflammatory response, right? But that's only to tackle and to fight foreign invasion, not to be a chronic inflammation. So when we're dealing with chronic inflammation, that's really the underlying pathology with a lot of disease processes. So certainly you can have a balanced diet if you are healthy and you're not finding any conditions. But if you are dealing with a condition that has an underlying inflammatory process, you want to consider things like eliminating dairy products. You want to avoid sugars and high fructose corn syrup. You want to avoid artificial trans fats. You want to also reduce the intake of refined carbs. So anything that says sugar added, toss it out. Excess alcohol, get rid of it. Processed foods and excess red meat, you want to really eliminate those products. And also eating foods that are high in anti-inflammatories. So we can go through that a little bit later. But one of the main items that we so underestimate, and weapon we have, it's not just about resting, it's about repair. That's the time period our body is repairing. A lack of sleep promotes inflammation. It has been correlated to diabetes, hypertension, weight issues. It helps to improve our memory and concentration, and so improve productivity. It helps us to endure exercise regimens, and it helps to improve our mood. So sometimes if you're a little bit moody and your family's like, oh, she's a little bit moody, it may be because of a lack of sleep. It helps us to regulate our emotions, and it certainly helps us with heart health and immune system. So perimenopausal period is usually occurring in the middle age. This is when we start to see those irregular rise and decline in our hormonal levels, right? So one of the things that happen during this time period is women think, oh, I'm okay, I don't need to birth control. Well, yes, you do. Because there are time periods in a perimenopausal period where you will actually be super fertile. So you want to make sure that you also continue to take those precautions. This is the time period when women start to feel some sexual dysfunction also. So here's the take-home message about this. If you were able to and had a healthy sex life before perimenopause and menopause, you're more likely to have a very healthy sex life throughout. And that's because oftentimes we forget that the brain for women, not our genitalia, but our brain, is the primary sex organ. So learning how to be sexually satisfied is important. Sexual satisfaction is more than just our hormones. And then we have the hot flashes. How annoying are those hot flashes, right? Well, the key here is making sure, I see some thumbs up, yes. So making sure you stay hydrated, making sure you do things to stay cool. Even if your partner may be a little cold, He'll handle it. You had the babies and all the other stuff. So making sure, and a key item with hot flashes is exercise. So exercise, women who exercise regularly are less likely to have bothersome hot flashes. And knowing when menopause actually hits. So menopause happens when you have not had a cycle for 12 or more months. Not you're still considered to be perimenopausal. Why is it important? It's important because when menopause hits, our body significantly changes. So we hear about bone health, right? So making sure we know menopause is associated with osteoporosis, and this is true, but there are things that we can actually do that are still in our power. So making sure that we do those muscle strengthening exercises, those weight bearing exercises, resistant bands are really important. But here's the thing that we forget. So yes, you can have spontaneous fractures as a result of osteoporosis, and you can certainly have falls that lead to significant fractures. But how about we prevent the falls to begin with? So doing exercises that help us in flexibility and agility are equally important, and sometimes we forget that. What happens in menopause also are sleep pattern changes. As we get older, we have shorter breaks or shorter durations of sleep, so we wake up more frequently, not necessarily associated with bladder function, sometimes just spontaneously. So making, and then we have vaginal health. So vaginal health changes with the loss of estrogen. So does the urinary tract system. It is the estrogen dependent. So making sure we do those things that help to keep our pH balanced so that we're less likely to have urinary tract infections and less likely to have those annoying vaginitis like a yeast infection or bacterial vaginosis, which are more common as we get older. So I know I went through a lot of things today, and I don't want you guys to feel overwhelmed. It's about choosing one item and picking that one item to focus on and trying to maximize that particular aspect of health that you feel that you can do a little bit better. And then once you've maximized that area, then moving on to the next one. So let me know what area of your health do you think you're going to be committed to changing moving forward. And I thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, Tasca. And we will circle back towards the end during Q&A. Oh my gosh, you just, there's a lot to unpack. But I have philanthropist Corey S. Taylor, who is going to speak on health and mindfulness and just continue on. This is just wonderful, lively conversation. Take it away, Corey.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Thank you, Dr. Moore, for that presentation. That was beautiful. That was good information. I was actually over here with my counterpart, taking some notes for her. And yeah, I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be able to share, my perspective and my passion when it comes to health and wellness, especially during Women's History Month, as we nurture our queens. This is really good information. So I will just start from the top. I am a result of all the choices I've made over the last 10 to 15 years. My health journey started in 2008 when I just decided to be a conscious eater. And I really wanted to just eat less Taco Bell at that time, believe it or not. That was my way to the next level, is not to cut it out, but to eat less. My natural thinking of health for me at that point meant to consume more foods that were better for me and less that weren't. And when we talk about health in our communities, we kind of almost feel that if we're suggesting a lifestyle change or a diet, we got to start tomorrow. And it's got to be all or nothing. And one thing that I teach people that I work with is practicality, and how anytime you're changing anything in your life, you want to do it over time. And so, I like to tell people to pick a day out of the week to consider a better way of living. Maybe the weekends, maybe meatless Monday, maybe things like that. We'll get into that. But I wanted to start off by saying all the information I'm giving you is to be applied at your own pace, because life is a marathon, like Dr. Moore said. And it's important that we don't overestimate ourselves and underestimate how radical change is. Things take time. So as I continue, one pillar of truth in my program is the combination of nutrition and mindfulness. And I say nutrition, not fit. You can do a lot of things. And if you're approaching a fit life, you have to first look at how you're eating. And because food is information. And the type of information you're putting in your body is the code that you're setting forth. And we all have our own code. We all have genetic potential. So I teach people how to not only eat for a better life, but eat for their body style and type. And that includes eating for your blood type. That includes eating to prevent certain diseases that may be in your body based on your lineage. That includes maybe even being in a certain region of the world, where some fruits and vegetables aren't available. So we have to kind of be able to be formless when it comes to what's best for you. And so I teach people how to listen. And that's what I want you to understand too, is your body is constantly telling you, what it needs more of, what it needs less of. And sometimes we'll just discard it. Oh, it's just inflammation. Oh, it's just a little gas. No, you're lactose intolerant. Stop drinking milk. Or, oh, I just get headaches when thing that you want to do, you want to get really good at in this new year is listening to your body, almost being parental. You never see a new mother out in the streets not prepared for that baby, whether it's the juice, the crackers, the diaper. And that's how we have to be with our own health for our whole life. We have to be parental. We have to be vigilant. We have to understand that when we feed our body, we're feeding ourselves. And so in theory, we're teaching our body how to behave and how to react. And a lot of us are living in a reactive state where we're eating something that our body doesn't agree with, and then we're living with the circumstances. So what I like to do is equip you with information that you can prevent certain things like dis-ease, or even the notion that your health has to decline as you get older. That's just not true. There are a lot of people in my life, me included, who are getting better with age. And better could be just about how peaceful you are, the less stress, the mobility, the mental, mobility or whatnot. So that is then the segue to mindfulness, which that's my niche, that's my gift. And I believe that meditation is the medication that most people are in need of. And if you are willing to take that journey to your highest self, you'll understand that a lot of times we're suffering because we're simply not listening and not in tune with ourselves. And where there's conflict, cancer can occur. So any type of disruption or dis-ease in the body can manifest into a multitude of things. And so I really teach people that I work with how to meditate and why to meditate. Why is it important to have that place you can go to get your peace? Because stress can kill. It not only raises cortisol levels in your body, which makes it harder to lose weight, but it puts you in a fight or flight state and it ages you. And this is a crazy world we live in, you guys. It's crazy enough. And so you want to be able to come to just that centered place of peace and harmony in your life, in your mind, even if it's 5 minutes in traffic, even if it's on a 6-hour flight across the country, even if it's just in the bathroom, taking a second. And I think as we get into this new age where mental health is really important and we're investing into that, meditation it's not so taboo anymore. It's actually a very applicable way to deal with life, to deal with stress, and to just be better parents, better lovers, better teachers, better leaders. And so that's really what I integrate into my workouts. My next point is eating right during a pandemic. And Ms. Scott, I know you really like this when we talked yesterday because, we're kind of all dealing with the same thing. And so, but there's people who are expected to be able to kind of share how they're beating this thing, how they're strategizing. And I can honestly say that, during the pandemic, first of all, we're not talking about, how dis-ease lies in mucus. So it's really important to kind of decrease the dairy dramatically to reduce the amount of mucus in the body. We didn't really get into that. I think people would lose too much money if we started, being championing plant-based diet. I get it. This is America. But I want to say that we need to understand the benefits of a plant-based. If you get a cancer scare and you have to go into chemo, the first thing they suggest is that you get on a plant-based diet. So why not live preventative? To prevent is better than to cure. During a pandemic, if you're moving less, if you're walking less, if there's less access to things, why not give your body the most it needs when it comes to building the immune system, building the immunity, the fiber, the green. So if there was ever a time to go plant-based, it would be now. And then also there's benefits to being still, because a lot of us don't really make time for ourselves. And I have a very unpopular opinion about the pandemic. I think it was the best thing that could happen to a lot of people, because now you can sit your butt down, okay? And you can actually chart out your day, chart out your life, focus on the things that you really have been putting off. And okay, if you're sitting still, that's sedentary. So my strategy to that with my clients, with the world, is to practice intermittent fasting. And that's my next point. And that's actually something that I get a lot of the people I work with to adhere to, is the rule of fasting, where you're not really doing that much in your sleep is sleeping. So why are you waking up and eating 1,000 calories? You were sold that. You're used to that, and that's okay. It's a feeding disorder. Somebody older than you was probably training you to eat that way, and that's just what we do here. However, during the pandemic, when many people are taking less than 10,000 steps a day, many people are living a sedentary life, need to eat less. And when it's time to eat better. And so I think this is a great way to practice that, because if you really are in tune with yourself, you're really not as hungry as you think you are during the day. A lot of times we're anxious or we're bored or dehydrated, because not many of us are really drinking the amount of water we need to drink, unless there's a trip coming up. And then we're on the gallon a day, right? Then we're walking around with the gallon. But any other time, we have to really remind ourselves. So, I would actually challenge all the listeners here to practice skipping one meal and replacing it either with warm tea, meditation, or some sort of stretch or activity, and give it a week and really see how much better you feel. Because as we know, when you eat, the brain eats before we eat, and it's up to, I think, 70% of the nutrients absorbed during that meal goes to the organs and whatnot. So really and truthfully, if your body is nourished and nurtured from eating better quality foods, you're not really needed to eat as much. And it's great on your bank account too. And so that's my best strategy during the pandemic while everyone is sitting still, is eating less, eating better, and practicing mindfulness. Now that you have all of this free time, get offline, right? And get into your mind. Okay, so my fourth point, and I really was looking forward to sharing this, is eating for healing, because a lot of times when we're wanting to look better, we really don't talk about feeling better. And there's a lot of people who look great, but they don't necessarily feel good. They may not be as regular, or they may not be getting as deep a sleep as they could, or they may not have that mental clarity, or they may be aging themselves from going hard every day. And so I'm all about being able to heal and kind of challenges certain labels. And I was talking to Angela yesterday about that. I know that we call things vegan, plant-based, and whatnot, but in reality, we're conscious beings, and we should be conscious eaters. And so if you're eating knowing that certain foods are going to help dispel inflammation in the body, or help excrete certain toxins out of the lymphatic system, or help get us to a deeper state of sleep or a deeper state of peace or whatnot, or some foods aren't really going with our blood type or our lineage, then it's just a matter of audaciousness. Be willing to fix your life and order your life in a way that serves you, so that we're not suffering. And that kind of is a whole, I guess, that's the whole message that I have with my clients, is that mindfulness is a state. Fitness is an energy, and how you're approaching the day, you're approaching it like a fit person. You're waking up conscious that you have to sit on a Zoom call today because work is online now. So how many steps can we get in our house? And it may not be. However, you are going to love the fact that during those months, you got at least 6,000 to 10,000 steps a day, not because the CDC says, but because you feel better moving. Admit it, you feel better moving, and it's also understanding that the day gets long, it gets boring. So why not take a mental health break? Why not log off and go for a walk, or maybe go upstairs to that room you don't go into and just sit still, listen to some Sade, write in cursive, do things you haven't done in years, you really just, you're the CEO, like Dr. Moore said, you're the CEO of your body, of your life. You really are. Be Google, be progressive, be innovative, reinvent the day that you have to deal with, because in reality, you guys, you have that control. And I think this pandemic has showed us how much control we do have over our life, over our mind, and especially over our body. And when it comes to mindfulness, again, food is information. So how you're eating and what you're eating is affecting your quality of life. And over the years was challenging myself to adhere to information when it came to my diet. I started out just eating less Taco Bell. I mean, man, I really love that stuff. They doing something. It was, I mean, come on. They were putting something in their food. I don't know. But I was starting to eat less of that. Then I gradually got into not even eating as much red meat. Then I got into eating different types of meat. Then I gave up pork. I mean, and 11 years later, I'm a vegan now for 4 years. So when people ask, like, how did you become vegan? I said, well, I just wanted to become healthy. So I wasn't really seeking a label. I was seeking a place. I was seeking a sensation. I wanted to feel good. I wanted to stop looking tired. I was 20. I wanted to feel 20. I didn't understand it. And then, now I can say in hindsight, that's what it always was. I just couldn't articulate it. And I think most of us, even though we have the vanity of wanting the stomach to look like, Beyonce before the baby, or J-Lo when she was dating Diddy, the timelines. After that, you just want to feel better. And you can't feel better eating like you've always done to feel bad. And so you have to just get into that place where you're willing to say, I'm going to meet myself in the middle, and I'm going to make dietary changes on Tuesdays and Fridays, or Friday through Tuesday. And I'm going to see how it feels for 6 weeks. And I'm not going to judge myself. And I'm not going to be perfect. I'm going to try to just progress. And I'm going to say, if it's a good thing, I'm going to keep doing it. And if it doesn't work for me, I'm not going to do it anymore. And I'm not going to let people tell me what I should and shouldn't do. I'm going to listen to my body, because as one of my mentors, Dr. Sebi, rest in peace, once said, you have to be your own doctor, your own guru, and you have to use resources and references just like that as a resource and reference. But you first have to know what you need and what you don't need. And a lot of us just are stubborn stewardess of this body. And this is the first relationship that we've had, the first relationship that we've been given. The first thing you took when you got here was your breath. It's the last thing you'll give up when you leave. And we have to consider it sacred. And so as I bring it to, so you can share the link to my online program, it's just really living a sacred lifestyle. I'm a proponent of spirituality, and I feel that if you really consider yourself a sacred being, you'll do things to protect your energy. You'll do things to nurture your body, to nurture your mind. And a lot of this stuff you'll find on your own on that journey. But we have to understand we're human beings, not doings. So even though you make 6 figures working your job, and even though if you lost that job, you think your life would be over, I'm gonna tell you one thing, like, you are more God than you are that paycheck. And there's a certain way you have to be to stay connected to that. And anything that gets in front of that is damn near evil, because if you go out, they'll replace you like that, right? Like a back wheel on a truck. Okay, there's a spare just waiting. And so we have to put ourselves first in our life. We have to take advantage of the resources that surround us. And we have to understand that if we're not good, nothing is good. And your kids feel it, your spouse feels it, your hairdresser knows it, it's in your eyes, it's in your swagger. And that's all I want. I want, especially my community. And that's really what I'm here to do. So I know I said a lot. Here's how I want to end. All these people on this call, here's my question, here's my challenge. Given the information, what one goal could you set for yourself this week, you all? Given the information I just received, that you just received, what goal could you set for yourself this week that, if accomplished, could change the rest of the year? And you can answer that in your own effort. I don't need to know it. Let everyone around you see it, because the loudest and the best message that we can have and say is the life that we live. And so that's what I want to challenge you to do. With all the information I've given you, pick one goal to apply to this week that can change this year. And God bless and God speed, because it won't be easy, but I promise you it'll be worth it.
Thank you, Corey. And we will, oh my gosh, we're going to circle back with you with questions as well. But I tell you right there, and I love how, Corey, we talked about it, like you said yesterday, changing the terminology to conscious eating. I love that. Because, if you're going to put a label on it, that's a great one, and that's everybody. And like I said, we're going to circle back with him, and he'll talk about eating, what we were talking about as far as eating for your blood type. So we'll circle back and talk about that too as well, and what that means. But next we have the incomparable Miss Nakia Fields, who is going to, again, tell us how to tap into our superpower. And we've already been given some keys right now, and she's just gonna bless us with some more. So here you go.
Okay, thank you everybody for having me. I am so grateful to be here, and I'm grateful that you guys allowed me to come to the last meeting as well, as we spoke about intergenerational trauma. And I referenced that talk because in that talk, I referenced choice points. And I think that's where I would like to begin here, because I like to have a flow to the way that I offer information, because we are all connected. Our thoughts and where our thoughts go are what control us. And I start with choice because Corey and Tasca both mentioned choice. Tasca mentioned it in the way that she addressed patients and the choices they made in their physical health and their treatment. Even the way they try to prepare their bodies for pregnancy involves some matter of choice. With Corey, he mentioned not choosing Taco Bell and doing else, right? And then he also mentioned mindfulness, which is a choice that he's making in a practice to help train himself to be able to do what he's able to do. And I bring those points up because for me, choice implies luxury, you know, and freedom, you know, to make a choice. And I think a lot of people are not actually in a mindset where they feel able to make choices. They are stuck in survival mode. And I think this is particularly true for communities of color. There's been a lot of health outcomes and data and way more research than there used to be, which is good, about what is happening to the human body because of chronic stress, whether you're a person of color or not. So when we're in the middle of a pandemic, there is a lot of transition and adjustment and disruption. So we have children who are disrupted from their friends and from education and the way they normally learned. We have parents who are disrupted from their work. We have couples who are disrupted from their privacy and their, you know, intimacy and routines and travel that they used to be able to do. We can't even see each other's faces and smiles anymore. That's a disruption of socialization that has happened for all of us. So again, I come back to this word choice. Truly, can we have choice and luxury and freedom to get the diet that we want and have this vegan delivery come tomorrow when we don't got a job? Can we get that coconut milk? I don't know. I'm gonna take that delivery. Somebody came and brought me. I'm gonna take what I got. My kid's eating, right? So I think when we go down to the base level of care, of self, we have to be realistic of the world we live in. And we have to be accountable for the world we live in. So people can make choices, but can they? You get me? You know, so we can tell people all day, every day, eat well, go to sleep. But if they got to work 2 jobs to have a home over their head, they're not going to go to sleep. And they're not going to sleep well because they're sitting there anxious about what the next day is going to look like, very validly. So I think at times there's this expectation of what we can do as an individual that doesn't take all that into account. And that's where mental health care comes in. There needs to be a place for validating that what you are feeling is absolutely crazy, because it should be feeling crazy right now. This is not normal. This is a disruption. This is a lot of times when, as a therapist, when people come in, you know, we give this diagnosis called adjustment disorder for people who are having some kind of transition issue or difficulty with their mental wellness or their life, their relationships. And it's short term and it's happening because we can identify an incident that happened. So many people right now are getting diagnosed with adjustment disorder. But when it becomes long term, it becomes PTSD. Chronic stress, when your body's constantly not sleeping, constantly feeling nauseous, like she talked about the bowels. Bowel issues is an anxiety issue. You know, if it's not diet, it's mood. If it's not mood, it's environment. Am I going to have shelter tomorrow? Am I going to have food tomorrow? This is all mental health. So my topic of choice is, how do you feel that you have choice, even in spaces that feel powerless? And that's mindset, right? So a lot of the stuff that we talked about was external. So why are we eating food? Because I'm gonna get abs, or I'm gonna look cute, or I'm gonna look like this, or I'm gonna do that up video, or, you know, people got these motivations. I'm going on vacation, I'm doing this. Is that internal, intrinsic motivation, or is that external, extrinsic motivation? What do you think? Is that for them, or is it for others? We could put that in the chat. Let's see what people vote while I keep talking. And, you know, it's not that extrinsic or intrinsic is better or worse than either. It's just important to notice which one you're working off of. That awareness is key. So if we are moving through life and we're looking at how everybody else is looking at us, are we paying attention to us? Are we noticing that our stomach hurts every time we go into this certain situation? Are we noticing that we're gritting our teeth after this particular event? Are we noticing patterns in our lives that are not serving us? If you are truly in survival mode and you're just trying to make it through, you're probably not. Because what are you noticing? What do you think we're noticing? We could put it in the chat. What are some things we're noticing when we're in survival mode in a pandemic? I've been hearing a lot of people say that they gained a lot of weight because they haven't been exercising and they haven't been leaving, and Netflix is a new movie theater. And everybody's, you know, on their computers, and it's sedentary, and and we were a lot, we depended on a lot of other people. We depended on our fitness instructor or our gym teacher or our accountability partner who walked with us at the Rose Bowl. That was mine. You know, so all that stuff is gone because everybody's scared to hang out with each other because you might got the Rona. I don't know. I love you from afar. But that routine is gone. And all the external stuff that we used to use is gone. So what did it do? Like Corey said, it forced us to kind of like look at ourselves a little bit more closely and notice what we had been doing. And if we fell into a routine that was all Netflix all day and eating bad food and making you gain weight, maybe you needed that. So but did it serve your body? Do you like the weight you gained? Do you like did it make you more sluggish? Does that serve you? So if it didn't, then that's the notice, right? So that's the mindfulness that Corey spoke about. However, mindfulness is a practice. You can't go to one yoga class or one meditation with somebody and be like, I practice mindfulness, because the whole practice, the whole point of meditation and mindfulness and focus and attention is that so that it becomes ingrained in you, so that when you do come into a crisis situation, you will have already been practicing, so your body is better able to engage in whatever that practice is when you do go into crisis. So that's why if there is no true actual practice that you have, it feels false. And I would like to point out that I'm so glad that we went in the order we went in. As a mental health professional, it's really hard for people to get therapy. Find a therapist in the first place. Why is that? Because we are focused so much on treating results as opposed to helping people identify and understand themselves so that they can treat themselves. Instead, we seek external assistance so that we can know ourselves better. That sounds crazy. Why do we need to ask other people? I love life coaches and gurus and even therapists. I'm a therapist. But we are not the experts of other people. We are the experts of us. So a mental health professional should be helping the client to know themselves and understand, create routine to love themselves. Because self-care is a decision. It's a consistent, everyday agreement with yourself that you love yourself, no matter what anybody else does or says. And that you love yourself enough to treat it well, to love it, to moisturize it, to nurture it, to give it baths, to give it walks, to give it hugs, to give it love, to give it affection, to give it rest, to give all this. And guess what happens when you do? The body notices. The health improves. The sleep improves. The behaviors that are a result of mental illness, physical illness, it comes after mental illness. It's not the other way around. Because you got cancer, you don't suddenly go to a therapist. I got to talk to you about I got cancer. That happens. People come in, my mom was diagnosed with this. We need to come in and talk about it. Okay. This sickness didn't just arrive. It didn't arrive today. It arrived within the family a long time ago. And it manifests in these health ways. So how can we love ourselves? How can we learn to love ourselves? I know some of you may have heard of the 5 love languages. I would like to just expose you to that because I really like to use it. with families. I'm a registered play therapist, and I also specialize in trauma and anxiety. And I love the love languages because they can apply to adults and as individual, they can apply to couples in working with each other, they can apply to families, and they can apply to children. And so let me open up, where did I put the love languages? So there are 5 love languages. They are words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. As you hear those 5 languages, I'd love for you to just put what you think your primary love language is into the chat. You know, so I'll tell you a little bit about I think mine is quality time. If I'm spending time with you, I love you. You know, like I'm busy. I'm a busy person. I got so many things to do, but if I made time for you, that's me showing love. I might not come and give you a $100 bill, but if I come and you saw me in your presence, I was showing you love. Like, that's the way I give. That's also the way I receive. If someone spends time with me, I definitely feel love. Like, you came to my birthday party. Thank you. You know, you showed up to a meeting I'm trying to do. Like, I'm trying to do these things, help support. I love you, you know? And so my love language is the way I receive most and the way I give most. And that generally happens, but it can be different. You can have the way you love other people is different than the way you love yourself. So think about that. How do you love other people? So are you very acts of service, always doing stuff for other people? But what about how you love yourself? Do you think about that? Are you very acts of service with yourself? Do you do a lot of things for yourself? So the people who kind of thought acts of service, I would really want you to think about, is it the same for yourself and for others? And if it's not, why not? Right? That's a choice. Why do I exert myself for love of others more than I exert myself for love of myself? What stops me? I'll tell you, you don't have a habit. You don't have a practice. This is not normal. This is not your routine. So self-care routine is what gives us energy and gives us superpowers to be able to go into the world, because we're like cars. We're like automobiles, right? So like we're moving along and we need fuel. Unless it's a hybrid, we might need a little bit less. I don't know what kind of vehicle you are. But you need some fuel. Somebody had to pause somewhere to refuel. So let's imagine that positive self-talk towards ourselves, engaging in things and the food we love, the routines we love, the people we love, nurturing ourselves and intentionally doing it and saying to ourselves, and I liked earlier the CEO and like the person in control. I like to tell everybody, always wear your invisible crown, because you are the king or the queen of your whole vessel. You are in control of every thought, every movement, everything you ingest on your TV. You can turn that TV off. You don't have to keep watching it. If you're not sleeping every night, what can you do? You can make decisions. You can identify what is keeping you up. What are the thoughts that keep you up every single night? What are those thoughts about? Is it about work? That work and your child and your partner is not permanent. If that is the thing that's causing you the most suffering, then perhaps it does not serve you. And that is what's taking away your energy and your power. That thing that you've decided, I'm comfortable in it, I don't want to transition. Because let's go back to choice, right? We always have a choice. Always. Even when we feel that we don't, we can take a moment and pause and notice what the options are. And then we can either choose to respond or react. The pause probably allows a response. If you don't have a pause, you just gonna react willy-nilly. Like, you coming at me, I'm gonna fight you. But if you have the pause in the middle, you coming at me, you can breathe and get out the way. You have options when you have the ability to control yourself. And if you don't pay attention to yourself and you don't pay attention to the warning signs before it gets to those physical things like being overweight or underweight or insomnia or anxiety or, separation anxiety with your children, like the behaviors that come with mental illness, are vast and varied. And it's different for everyone. You could be pulling your hair out. I have clients who just pull their hair out, who eat dirt, who eat things that to soothe themselves. Where did it start? Where did these behaviors start? We noticed it at some point, and then this became our self-care routine, this maladaptive behavior. If we notice ourselves engaging in a maladaptive behavior, a behavior that is not serving us, that isn't doing well for us, then we have the opportunity to tell ourselves, hey, I don't think my body likes that. I just had to be in the bathroom for like 10 hours. Maybe I'll listen to myself. Maybe I'll notice myself. And there are lots of ways that you could be mindful. It's not just meditating. A lot of time we talk to people about washing dishes is a very easy way to start meditation practice, because the bubbles and the texture and the water. And I'm not saying like go clean your dishes, ladies, because this is a queen type thing. I don't love being domestic, but and I have a dishwasher, but I will say on the most stressful days, something about warm water on the hands, putting some soap in your hands and then rubbing the bubbles, watching the bubbles, breathing as you watch the bubbles, counting the bubbles, playing with your kids while you do it. Let's see how long we can be quiet and watch the bubbles. It can become, that's a simple routine that you can have, and it can grow. So maybe that's what you do on Tuesday nights. Like that's when after dinner you agree to do the dishes, and nobody knows that that's your meditation time, but that's what you've chosen. That's what you've told yourself. You've had an agreement with yourself. This is what I shall do to start my practice of being mindful, so that when it comes to a very stressful time for you, you can harness that power you had to just be and just notice and be present and find your power. We are powerful beings. Our superpower lies in our passion. If you are unhappy and unhealthy and it's gone on for a long time, you have been trapped in a routine or a comfort level that you have not yet noticed isn't serving you. So what do we do? Is it easy to change something? No, huh? No. It's hard. It's one of the hardest things to do. What is that about? What do we think that's about? No, it is not easy to change. Not wanting to quit. Yeah. It's also comfortable, right? It's what you know. You're the expert in it. And the thing is that we have this thing called ego. And a lot of times people say, oh, the ego's in charge. Ego. And I was like, that ego's supposed to be in charge. That's the role of the ego. That's the ego. That is what is kind of in the brain helping all of this move along, because it has faith. Faith is what drives. Faith that we have the ability to be who we're supposed to be and wear our crown and be in control of our actions, our thoughts, and ourselves. So instead of thinking that when we take care of ourselves, we're being selfish and egotistical and narcissistic, I suggest that we think of a reframe, that we are intended to be in control of ourselves and love ourselves and be our best cheerleader, our number one advocate, our engine and our fuel to say that we are divine, in alignment with all the energy that is around us, and we give to the world what we expect to receive. And that's how we move through. And whether that's faith or religion or mindfulness or Buddhism, it doesn't have to have a name. It's called being human. And humanity is what's lost when you ignore mental health. And you look at the results of what the body's doing. But mental health is mind, body, and spirit together. And that's the work of healing intergenerational trauma that occurs for many of the minority people in America, particularly Black women, the least protected. There's so many quotes. But as we close out and we enter into Q&A, you know, let's go back to how we started. Choice. We all have choice to be extrinsically or intrinsically motivated by how we respond to the world around us. So if we feel unhappy, our body feels unwell, we have to identify what exactly is contributing to that. What routine do we have to combat it? And if there is no routine at all, that's up to us to make a change, because we can change. It is possible. All transition is uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. And that's a mind shift change. And it's important to do that work.
Thank you, Nakia. That was truly powerful as well. So before we start with the Q&A, which Robbie is going to lead, we're going to circle back and have Joanne give us a few announcements of what's happening. We'll go into the Q&A.
Yeah, we've been hearing so many good things. I don't want to get us off track, but think about what your questions are. We normally start the workshops we have monthly with updates on issues that we've been working on, and we kind of skipped over it today. And that is that the Committee for Racial Justice has been part of the Coalition for Police Reform in Santa Monica for years now. And we've been talking with police about issues for years, but now in the wake of George Floyd's death and the concerns that have come up across the nation and in this city as well, there is being formed now an oversight for public safety, a police oversight commission for the first time in the history of Santa Monica. And the deadline for applications to be on that is coming up in March. I believe it's March 18th. But Angela's going to be putting the link or to the applications in the chat. So if you're at all interested in getting involved in anything like that, take that information off the chat. And I just want to say that also, if you are not on our email list that gets emails about the monthly workshops, then put your email in the chat and say you want to be on our email list. Thanks. Robbie, take it away with Q&A.
Okay, guys. Wow. I just want to go on and on and on and on. Our speakers are always amazing, but this group of speakers today really helped me to feel like I can handle my queendom a little better. You know, it's just refreshing. I mean, some of the things, of course, maybe we knew, especially when you're old as I am, but some of the things, it was very helpful to kind of focus on. I'm not saying, Corey, I'm gonna do all that. I don't think I'm gonna go plant-based. Angela's been trying to get me to do that, but I'm gonna try some new things. So, and Nakia, girl, I love your down to earth, just straight talk. I love that. Okay, so if you guys have questions, please put them in the chat. Because I don't really always see your hands up, but I will try to do that as well. Let's see. I don't see any questions so far. Okay.
I'll hop in with a question, Robbie.
Okay, how about the question? Because it seems like people are feeling like I am. Just
being shy. Don't be shy. So I guess my question goes to Dr. Moore. I know right now you're part of this whole coalition as far as the importance of cultural competency among doctors. I'd really like for you to expand and talk about why that is so important when we talk about that in healthcare.
Awesome. Oh, how much time do I have? Well, I'll put it this way, right? So we know that racism exists, that's a given. But what's really interesting is just how subtle it is in so many aspects of our life, and healthcare is certainly no exception to that. And so it's about us also recognizing the ways in which racism has impacted healthcare and the delivery of healthcare. So I'm a women's health provider, I'm an OBGYN, and certainly there's been a long history of racism in my own field, stemming back to even some of the surgical procedures that we do to this day that were based on enslaved women without anesthesia, multiple procedures for some of them, starting from the age of 18 onward. We know that we have heard the statistics about Black women, Native Americans, as well as Alaska Natives in terms of pregnancy outcomes and the disparities that are just, it's mind blowing that we're 3 times more likely to have death related to pregnancy and pregnancy related issues. Or the fact that a lot of the social determinants that we thought were impacting these outcomes are not so. So being a more educated Black woman increases your risk to 5 times the amount. So I'm really happy that we've touched on chronic stress, and what's been shown consistently as an independent factor has really been that chronic stress related to racism and living in a society that's racist has led to a lot of these outcomes. But here's the kicker: it's really about messaging, right? So what we're still not getting well is how do we share this messaging? I'll give you a couple of very quick examples. So one messaging we've heard about recently: communities of color are hesitant to get the vaccine, hence disparities in administration of the vaccine. Well, when you actually look at the number, our hesitancy does not compensate or does not explain the disparities in the vaccination rate. So there are still disparities in the distribution of vaccine that is not related to hesitancy. Then you hear things like a lot of Black women are now experiencing that they go into the doctor's office and the first thing that they're hearing is that they're going to die as a result of pregnancy. Again, messaging. You can't provide for someone the outcome that's negative, which by the way is not the primary outcome, it's just a disparity. So most Black women survive pregnancy, but it's just a disparity in comparison to other ethnic groups. But when that's what you're being told, becomes a form of trauma because now you are thinking and you're preoccupied with the fact that you may die as a result of your pregnancy. Another quick example: Black people are told oftentimes, you are high risk for this because you're Black. You're high risk for that because you're Black. How many times have we heard that? Diabetes, hypertension, we can go down the list. Again, wrong messaging. Me being Black doesn't make me high risk. What makes me high risk is that the American system and the systemic racism is high risk to me, which becomes evident in my disease processes. So the messaging again about being Black is being high risk is the wrong messaging. So there's so much work that we have to do. Again, does it mean that Black people take care of Black people? No, because I am one of 2% for physicians. 2% of physicians are Black females. So clearly we cannot take care of 13% of the population. It's about really getting to the root of these issues because it requires everyone to work on this, can make the difference. And so I have my own personal experiences with having bad outcomes with my own healthcare as a result of racism. So I'm not an exception to it. I have experienced it as a clinician and as a patient. So it's something that's important to me for all those reasons.
Okay, great. Let's see. We have Kiana and then Craig. Kiana?
Yes. Hi, my question is for Nakia. I'm looking for therapists, POC therapists. I've been having a difficult time. Just wondering if you have any personal networks for minors. I have a 15-year-old daughter, and then also
That I do, and I'm so glad that you asked. And I put the link in the chat. But I am the chair of the Black Mental Health Task Force, and it is a group that was formed because we are very intentional of trying to increase access to care for Black people in the mental health world. So if you go to blackmentalhealthtaskforce.net, and there's a resource page. We just had a virtual resource fair, and you'll see videos of all these organizations that are Black led or specifically are available to provide services to our community. And most of it's virtual now, but check it out. Also, if you go to Therapeutic Play Foundation, that's my nonprofit. I'm a registered play therapist, and what we do is we specialize in children, so children, 0 to 18, and also family dynamic work, particularly with communities of color. So if you try or refer you to someone, help you find someone, okay?
thank you. Can you put that in the chat also?
Yes, here, I'll put the task force again, the resource page.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's been very hard. Even us, we have wait lists because so many people have started to come since the pandemic. Really, people started to feel a little bit more like ready to address what's going on. So it's been a lot.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, Craig.
Yes, thank you. As a follow-up, I guess, to Angela's question, before we got into this, we were reminded specifically about the activities that we were involved in as a activist group. And we sit in with policymakers that don't necessarily have our best interest, and clearly the best interest of our children from a healthy standpoint of view. And I'm wondering specifically, is there anything in the way of, I guess you could say, an inner breath that we could take to address when we know we're going into that type of hostility? That's an open question to anybody, but specifically, I'd like to hear the brother's point of view on that, in that, so much of this is male-centered.
I invite Corey to go first on that since we ended with male-centered.
Yes, I caught the last half of that. Could you repeat that for me, please, Craig?
Well, it's a follow-up to Angela's issue about us and the level of racism, since we're talking about this, and how we are in touch and working, face-to-face, one-on-one with policymakers that don't really have our best interests and our health, in mind specifically. And, we give them advice or we give them recommendations and they ignore them. And I'm wondering specifically, is there a thing that we can say inner self, inner speak, to address that hostility? And it's an open question, but specifically since African American men are most at risk with it, is there something that we can look at, in addressing this issue?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I would say we have to accept that as a fact, and then have the best, intentions for our own life, and take our own advice, and take the direction that we're trying to give others to give ourselves and our communities, and just qualify ourselves as those leaders of those communities, and live that out. I think, we have to get to where we just know where we are, and we understand what's against us, and we apply that to ourselves. We make the best choices for ourselves, for our people, and we try to be advocates in those communities that we're in. And we no longer rely on policies or laws or pieces of paper to create the change, but to actually live it, to embody it. That to me is a more about, just being self-preservation and self-reliant, which is a bit radical, but I think it takes just as much effort and energy to kind of take our own advice and our own direction, than it would to kind of have hostility towards those that really don't want to hear us. And if you know they don't want to hear us, then what can we do then to better our circumstances, in the here and the now?
And I would love to add to that, and to go back to how I spoke. There's opportunity always to claim power. And I think that's where civic engagement comes in. We have to be educated and aware and notice what's going on in our systems and our government and our laws, particularly about where we live. And then we go in there and we become the leaders. And we make that change so that we don't operate in fear as we move through the world, because that's what's different now. We don't have to stay in survival mode. We can be aware that there are options, and we could demand our rest, and we could demand our ability to have our mantra or whatever. So you mentioned, as a Black man, I think you were speaking to that. And as a Black woman, I want to center that. It's unsafe to be a Black man advocating for yourself in some situations. Let's just put that on the table. We can't control other people. We can't control what they say, what they do, and how they control themselves, or whether they control their gun or their power that they have. But what we do have is control of ourselves, awareness, notice of what happened in the past, and then we have the ability to move in this life claiming what we can claim and believing that we can. And I think, I would again say that civic engagement, that awareness of the laws, things like Measure J, there's some peer laws that just passed. There's a lot of things like doulas, like there are things that are passing that are community led. Even this oversight committee that you guys are talking about, all new, all things that are community doing things. So power lies in action. Take action in things that are making you worried, and then it feels less scary.
Great answer. Amazing, both of you. Corey, I have a question. Talking about how to eat according to your blood type. Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. It's not new information, but I think where we are, we're getting more progressive and we're opening our minds to different ways to eat and heal. So, based on your blood type, whether you're O, A, or AB, there's certain protocol that is suggested with your blood type. So like, for instance, type O is high protein, like lean meats and legumes. But also you have a proclivity to have stomach issues. Type A is a meat-free diet, but you also have a sensitive immune system. AB, which is the most common, you're told that you're going to be better suited to eat like seafood, dairy, green veggies, but you're also told to avoid caffeine and alcohol. So it's just certain provisions and certain measurements that you have to take in consideration based on your blood type. First, you have to know your blood type, which that's the whole thing. You need to understand what you are. But then eating according to your blood type is just a way to ensure that you're getting all the things you need and all the things you don't. And this is more about at the hormonal level, and at the molecular level, there's a code already set. And more people have success when it comes to weight loss, improving their health, when they eat according to their actual blood type for a sustained amount of time, not as a diet, but actually, as a lifestyle.
Great. That was great. A couple of people ask about sleeping habits. How can we better prepare ourselves for sleep as well? And I know Nakia put some things in the chat, but can any of you kind of elaborate on how to help us sleep better? I think that was Gabriella, was it? And Bonnie and myself.
If I may just start it, I honestly understand like the brain, when you're looking at your phone, it takes up to like 30, 45 minutes from when you turn it off for you not to see that in your mind, even when your eyes are closed. So I'm all about screen time. I know that when I lay down, it's gonna at least be 30 minutes before I can reach sleep. And we have to kind of time our end our day according to that understanding that if you want more sleep, you need to start that whole process earlier in the night. And you need to know that you're not just gonna lay down, your mind is thinking. And so I also use things like binaural beats, which you can literally go on YouTube and type in binaural beat sleep. And it's different frequencies, different theta frequencies that ease your mind and lull you into like that low REM phase of sleep. But that's just ways to approach sleep itself. I also feel that, again, the diet, you know, if we're juiced up on caffeine all day and we're eating foods high in sugar and things like that, it's just gonna make it hard to kind of come back down from that chemical high that a lot of us in this country are naturally on. But, you know, as far as sleep is concerned, start the process earlier in the night. Know that it might take an hour to get comfortable. And then also, here's the thing, when you're not tired, don't force it, just rest. There's a whole thing about if you're trying to make yourself sleep, that's actually going to make you more tired than you would have been had you just laid there and just tried to relax. Sometimes the body takes time to get there. And so we kind of just got to get in tune with ourselves. But going to bed early, I think, is a great place for everyone to start because it means less time online and maybe more time, you know, on your pillow.
Yes, and thank you, Curry. And just to add to what Corey just said, so a lot of times we just kind of make sleep happen. We don't actually plan to go to bed. And so that's really the key, is making a plan to go to sleep. There are different routines you can use, whether it's using sound or aromatherapy or drinking a nice soothing hot tea. Start that routine to go to bed. That is key. The blue light from TV screens and from your phone tells your body, it interferes with your circadian rhythm. So you want to make sure that you're avoiding that blue light stimulation when you're preparing to go to bed, preferably at least 2 hours before you go to sleep. So what happens if you miss sleep? Because that happens more regularly than not. So if you miss sleep, what you want to do, well, first of all, let me say also don't get excessive sleep because that's been found to be harmful. So if you're going beyond 9+ hours per night, then you're actually doing more harm than you are good. So you really want, for most adults, to aim between 7 to 8 hours per night. So what if you have a night where you actually miss some sleep? Well, as I mentioned, it's really hard to catch up on sleep, but there's some things that you can do. You can go to bed earlier than the next night on the weekend, but again, not going beyond that 9+ hours, and then also taking a quick power nap. But making a nap, don't make it a sleep. So you don't want to go beyond 20 minutes to get your power nap during the daytime to kind of help you refresh. So those are ways that you can kind of catch up if you do have a sleep deficit. But if you're chronically having sleep deficits and you're having sleep issues, that's the time to really get some consultation from your healthcare team to figure out what may be going on that may be interfering with your sleep. And maybe there are things we can do, whether it's supplements, dietary changes, or behavioral therapy to try to get you to have a better night's rest sleep. But definitely do not overlook it as part of your treatment plan.
Great.
And I just want to add one more thing. For the sleep, legs up the wall inversions are really awesome for sleep. So like if you are at your bed, you turn your body around and put your legs up the headboard, that's an inversion. So whenever your feet are above your head, it does something to help your heart rate rest and assume that you're getting ready to rest. Also, like I also copy what they say with no electronics before bed. Try not to eat, because if your body's digesting and all that stuff, it's still like thinking you need to be in action and not in a full rest state. And final is write down what you want to think about while you're sleeping. So I don't know if you know this, but your brain is still active. Even though your consciousness goes to sleep, your brain is active. So the superpowered people know this. So if you write down 5 things you want to think about while you're sleeping, maybe one of the things you want to think about is the next day feeling rejuvenated. So you write that down before you go to bed so that you have that experience as you sleep, because that's what you expect to happen when you wake up. Write down 5 things you want to happen in your sleep and 2 things you want to happen when you wake up. I'm guaranteed you tell yourself what you want to happen. You are in control of that brain.
I love that. One new thing that I started doing, my TV went out in my bedroom. That was a blessing, because I started playing a soft, I don't know, Apple has a sleep app. I mean, the sleep music. And so I play that on low. And then when I wake up, I have another song that I like, I don't know, y'all don't know anything about Donald Byrd, but anyway, I play Donald Byrd when I wake up, and it puts me in a different frame of mind. But I remember putting the feet on the wall when I was younger, 18, actually younger than 18, and for cramps. And so I'm gonna try that. I'll try that. So that's great. Okay, I think we have like maybe Joanne. I know it's time to stop almost, but there were a couple other questions. One was something that I also started doing, but it's working a little bit for me, but not as fast as I wanted to, and that's intermittent fasting. Somebody else asked about intermittent fasting. So who wants to tackle that one? Nobody?
I can start a little bit. So intermittent fasting has been found to have some great health benefits, from improving brain function to potentially lengthening your life. One of the great things about it, it helps to really regulate your hormones. That tells you when to eat, suppresses and increases your appetite, and tells you when you're full. One of the pitfalls I do want to mention is that sometimes what people do in their fasting, they're doing great, but then in their time when they're eating, then they start to make bad choices in terms of their health eating options. So you want to make sure that you're continuing to make a feasting so that you're able to maintain your health goals and your health outcomes. So definitely don't fast and then, gorge and splurge. You want to be consistent with it.
Definitely.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, ladies
Okay,
first.
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
Well, look, all I want to say is she's absolutely right as far as when you break your fast. There's actually certain foods you should avoid and certain foods you should consume. I like to always suggest starting with like some sort of smoothie or green juice, something that's rich with macronutrients, and not to go straight to the carbs, straight to the heavy stuff that's going to expand and maybe sometimes even hurt your stomach. So that's a very good point. A lot of people, they will fast, but then they'll make inappropriate choices when it comes to like how they break that fast, and then that's definitely going to be counterproductive.
And I was just going to add about fasting as a mindset. So a lot of your self-care practice is not just a meditation practice. It's your food, it's your sleep, it's your relationships, it's the choices you make on the daily. So once you start to notice your body and how good it feels when you eat certain foods, and when you eat certain foods at a certain time, you start to move in that routine. And that's super important for you to notice what time that you're eating, that you have healthy bowels the next day, or that you had less pain in your legs or in your head or less headaches that day. So you start to notice when it's best for you to eat. So for me, I'm a best eater at like 10, 11. I start with water, hot drink, and then I eat a big meal. And then I tend to fast, the rest of the day. I have one like big and then little snacks. I'm not doing this because nobody told me to do it. Nobody said this is the best diet that you should do to lose your weight, but I found in my, as I became more healthier and had a routine of yoga in the morning, this particular type of water, lots of water on a regular basis is super important for the human body, because we are water. So if insomnia So if insomnia and all this stuff is happening for you and you're overeating or undereating, more water is best. And I really do think it's important that you notice yourself in your own body and don't follow other people's fasting routines. It's your body. That's that intrinsic, extrinsic motivation thing we're talking about. Remember, just because it's a fad doesn't mean it's for you. Listen to what your body says. And if you need a professional to help you understand what your body is saying, talk to Corey.
Absolutely. We'll be calling Corey. I'll definitely be calling Corey. But so yes, I do. I'm a brunch girl. I even got married. We had a brunch after we got married. So I always thought I had to have breakfast. My grandmother was a breakfast girl. You got to have this breakfast. You got to be able to, have that fuel. But I find that having the music and the tea in the morning is fine for me. And I'm cool until it's time to brunch. And then, that's been working so far. I'm just you know, just trying, just for me, because I want to just balance me. So I guess we're kind of done. Joanne, Angela, are we there? You guys were amazing. Our audience was amazing. Our speakers were amazing. Okay, it looks like I'm gonna have to drop something else and get back on Black Mental Health Task Force, because I'm like seeing y'all all the time now and I'm loving what I'm hearing. So
yes, we're trying to do that good work.
Oh, probably for Nakia, does it seem like therapists are going in the direction of group therapy now? Is that because of the overflow from the pandemic? It seemed, I know my daughter was saying her therapist was trying to push her into group therapy. My therapist trying to push me into group therapy. I'm feeling some kind of way. So is that a trend now, or what's?
I think it's a blend. I think that we are overwhelmed and there's not enough of us. So we're trying to create groups so that we can treat more people virtually until we hire more and we figure out what more can we do, because there's not enough Black providers. That's just it. And there's not enough Black providers or providers of color that accept the funding sources that our clients need. So I think that's one thing, and that's why groups have been growing. And then secondly, groups have been recommended because a lot of things that particularly traumatic things like DV, sexual abuse, our best treatment is group. Best treatment model for addressing those types of issues is being in community with others who've experienced it, so that you don't feel alone and that you have a safe space to discuss it. Of course, you can have those discussions with your individual therapist, but your individual therapist may not have had the experience that you had. And to be able to process that through with someone else is very powerful and can be very healing. So I would recommend, honestly, and I do recommend, that people have individual therapy and supplement their individual therapy with group work, not as only group or individual. I think both are important, but I think group is a wonderful supplement, depending on what's going on for you. So if you're isolating in your house and you're in a heavy depression, group might be a good thing for you. If you're in a domestic violence relationship and you're perseverating in your therapy session over and over again about the court case and you can't get past it, you need a group session because you need somewhere to keep talking about that court case until you're done talking about it. Right? So everything has its role.
You are just amazing. Oh my God. You explain that better than I'm not gonna tell her she explained it better. But anyway, yeah.
Well, there's no better. There's only from our experience, right? So I really am in this. Like, I'm running community organizations. I've been contracted in schools. My specialty is families and children. So like group dynamic work is what we do. Like group community dynamic work.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, you're fantastic with it. Okay, take it away, y'all.
Robbie, we usually end with the Asada chant. Are you up for that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. We usually end with Asada, and like always, I'm switching it up again. I don't feel like screaming down so they hear us at City Hall, because actually we have our mayor right here. So we don't need to do that. We can just calmly say the chant. So I'll just say it once, and then, after, what is it called? I'll say the words and then you guys repeat. So it goes like this, and I'm sure a lot of you already know. It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to fight for
freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love. We must love and care for one another.
Care for one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing
to lose but our chains.
Our chains.
Okay. Well, you guys were kind of sluggish on that. I will say, let's pump it up a little bit. Okay, it is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is.
Our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and care for one another.
We must love and
care for one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have
nothing to lose but our chains.
Can never lose our crown. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
We can never lose our crown.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
everyone. You panelists, wonderful, wonderful. We are blessed. We are blessed by everything that you spoke. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Until next time.
That was an
Until next
amazing.
time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye, Patricia. Thank you. Thank you, Louise. Louise, you recorded everything?
And yeah, she's got the chat too. Yeah.
Yay. Thank you.
Night.
I'll send it to you later tonight.
I'm gonna need a copy of it too. This is Gina.
Okay.
Good night, Gina.
All right.
Hey, this was a good one. This one was a good one.
Yeah.
Good night, Angela. And good night, Mary's iPhone.
Okay, see you later. Thank you. It was a great program. Fabulous.